What does seduction mean to you? Because you wrote a book about.
I hope my mom wasn't hearing this.
You've worked more than 50 jobs?
I was like taking people and letting the law find them. I just felt really ugly about myself. And that's why I wrote the 48 Laws of Power.
You said never outshine the master. Why?
I outshone the master and got fired twice.
You also said crush your enemy totally.
I'm sorry to tell you, it is how the world operates. Don't be so naive.
Did you end up writing the book that a young Robert needed?
Well,
You still have this hunger, Robert, so why? Why do you do all of this?
you know, I never felt like I was respected or loved enough. It was my ambition that actually drove me to feeling depressed and suicidal.
Hi, everyone. I'm with Mr. Robert Greene. We had one of his most boring interviews. I personally loved it, and I hope it was a nice balance between your personal life and the knowledge that you have. I hope we danced well.
We danced very well. We would be a good partner, good team. I wasn't bored at all, okay? I just sometimes hearing the sound of my own voice gets a little bit annoying, you know. But I had a great time. Your questions were really interesting. You know, I've done probably thousands of podcasts, maybe close to, always the same questions. And I go, oh, but you ask questions I've never been asked before. That is a real compliment.
And that's thanks also to the girl sitting there or standing there, Farah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we work together to make good questions.
I did not know that. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So for all of you who are tuning in, always subscribe, support, and our job is to get you the right guests and the right minds. And if you already follow Robert Greene, unfollow and follow again, just so he knows that you follow him again. But support, push his content, push his knowledge, read his books, and benefit your loved ones. There's a lot of knowledge there, and I'm sure Robert would appreciate your love. Like, what was that cool word that we... No, I don't want to spoil it. Watch the interview. It's that word that I asked you that will be on the tombstone. But I want to keep it. No, don't say it. Okay, lovely. Hi, Robert.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here with us and giving us your time.
You're very welcome.
I've read your books, a few of them, a while back. And then I noticed that on social media now you've become very popular with certain clips here and there, and it's inspiring a lot of people, which is quite nice to see. But in my show, I always try to blend more the human behind the title. So I want to get to know you. And of course, I still want to get to know your knowledge. That helps everybody. So
Okay.
I'll dance between both.
Okay. I don't know if you'll like what you'll get to know about me, but go ahead.
We'll try.
Okay.
My first question is a simple question I always like to start with, which is, Robert, how are you really doing?
I'm fine. I'm very kind of worn out. I'm working on my new book, which will be finished hopefully by the end of the year or beginning of next year. And when I'm getting near the end of a chapter, which I am now, I'm just working so hard, and I just feel so drained. And last night I was working very late, and then I got up early this morning, and I'm working because I have a deadline. And so normally I'm full of energy. I'm a little bit drained right now because of I really, really want to finish this book. I've been working on it for 6 years now.
Wow.
I know.
What is the topic?
The topic is what I call the sublime. So, something I've been wanting to work on since I think around 2005. And then I got derailed by this 50 Cent project, and then Mastery, and then I had my stroke, in which I nearly died. I came this close to dying. It's actually right near here, 2 blocks from here, where I had my stroke. So I live in this neighborhood. And the sublime is kind of about things that take you out of your normal life and expose you to something strange and wonderful beyond the usual limits that we live in. And a near-death experience, which is what I had, is kind of the ultimate sublime experience, you know? You're coming close to the border between life and death. You're experiencing sensations that most people never get to experience. You know, I was unconscious, but I was having strange visions. And when I was on the ambulance on the way home from the hospital after I'd been there for a week, I'm thinking, okay, somebody was sending me a signal that this is now the time to write the sublime book, because this was sort of the ultimate kind of sublime experience. So that's I could talk to you more about what the book is about, but that's the general theme. And I'm on the 11th chapter now in the 12 chapters. And the 12th chapter is about our relationship to mortality and death. So I'm getting very near to that edge.
Interesting. Okay. Back to you. Who are you when no one's around?
Well, I'm somebody who's like always thinking. So I live in my head a lot. And so I'm kind of always like thinking of ideas and thinking about life and thinking about people and thinking about the world and devising all sorts of new ideas and strategies. So I'm in my head a lot. But I also realize that I'm a physical being. So to get out of my head, I exercise, I do things, I meditate every morning. But I lead a very, very, very boring life. If you saw what my life was like, you go, my God, that's how do you put up with that? I just wake up in the morning, I meditate, I interact with my cats and my wife, have breakfast, and then it's into work, you know, and then it's lunch, and then it's into work, and then at night maybe we watch a movie. I don't really go out. I don't do very much. It's just work because I love my work. So that's unfortunately who I am. I live a very plain and modest and kind of boring life. But spiritually and intellectually, it's very rich.
Yeah, I feel, you know, the word boring, Robert, is undervalued and underrated. Because today we've reached the opposite of boring. You're always distracted, entertained with your phones, with your social media. And I tell my kids, and I'm like, you need to be bored, because when you're bored, you become creative. No creativity without boredom.
That is exactly what I've been writing about this morning. Really. I was just writing about boredom. And boredom is a signal. It used to be a signal that you need to become creative, that you need to use your mind to find ways to amuse yourself. So when you're a child, like when I was, and you're bored, you have to invent a game. You have to find ways to entertain yourself. And so you develop an imagination. You develop creativity. But if you're fed everything, if everything is given to you with your phone, with your toys and things, you never develop your imagination. You never develop anything inside of you in order to relieve that boredom, right? You don't know how to be patient. You don't know how to slow down. And so I agree with you completely that the ability to feel bored is actually a strength. It's actually very strong, you know. It reveals something good about you. And so when I'm bored, what do? I get a book and I start thinking and I read or I do something to create kind of excitement within myself, not somebody giving it to me. So when I say that my life is boring, I don't mean to say I'm complaining, because I'm very happy with a boring life.
That's a nice title for a book. I'm very happy with my boring life. I think it's very underrated, especially in this kind of world, you know? If we actually, on the idea of There was something that crossed my mind and now it crossed away and ran away from me. If it comes back,
That happens to me all the time.
yeah.
Till you get older, and that happens to you like every day.
Your childhood in 3 words.
It was let's see, 3 words. You gave me 3 words. Alone and full of play. Well, playful. So you want me to explain?
No, one more. Playful, alone, and
alone, playful, and rich.
Which one would you like to elaborate on?
Well, alone first. I had parents who were good parents. I'm not criticizing them, but I was left alone, you know, and so that's where I developed my creative energy, if I have any, in my imagination. I mean, they allowed things that I don't think any parent now would ever allow their children. So I'm 11 years old, and I ride my bicycle. We lived in the west side of Los Angeles. I rode my bicycle all the way into Santa Monica by myself, going to shops and doing all sorts of things. When I'm 11, you know, and you know, I had complete freedom. My friends and I, we would climb up into the hills. We lived in these hilly area, and we do all sorts of crazy things. So they left me alone. And sometimes you could say that you're being neglected, but I think it was the best thing that could ever happen to me because it made me develop myself and it gave me space to kind of create my own identity. If parents are too in your face, you're never really able to sort of create who you are as separate from them. So they're kind of, you know, I have this philosophy which is called amor fati. In Latin, it means love of fate. And it's the belief that everything that happens is for the best. Now, you might say, well, that's sort of ridiculous, but no, it's a way of thinking. So being neglected, you could say, oh, that's terrible. You're so alone. You're not getting the love. But on the other hand, you're getting to learn to love yourself. You're getting to learn to develop yourself. So even the stroke that nearly killed me is a blessing, is a beautiful thing, is a positive thing, if that's how you look at life. So my childhood was full of things like that normally you might say that's kind of negative, but actually it was a very wonderful thing. I had a very wonderful childhood. I miss it very deeply, you know, because, you know, I was always inventing games and it's just, you know, I felt so alive and, you know, connected to nature because we lived in this beautiful part of town and stuff. And I have a chapter in my new book about childhood and how sublime your childhood mind was, and the need to kind of go back to your spirit and your mind and who you were when you're 5, 6, 8 years old and recapture that. Because we think of children as being these kind of silly little pieces of nature that don't have any really intelligence yet. But actually, children are more connected to life than we are when we get older. They have more kind of philosophy than we have as we get older, you know? Socrates once said that dogs are the most philosophical creature on the planet, but I believe children are in some ways. So I'm very connected to my childhood experiences, and I think about them a lot, and they're very important to me to hold on to.
I remembered what I wanted to ask you. Maybe you have some insight on this.
Okay.
You know, when we're young, Robert, you could give me like just these 2 chess pawns, and I could literally stay playing and imagining.
Yeah.
I wonder why. I remember not exactly the moment, but the kind of phase when I couldn't anymore play with 2 toys like a G.I. Joe. Because when I at certain ages, I could. You just give me 2 G.I. Joes, I'm good.
Yeah.
I kind of remember when I couldn't anymore.
You had a G.I. Joe?
Yeah, I did.
So did I.
Yeah. So...
when you couldn't do what?
Couldn't you know, when you couldn't imagine the same power. So I wonder what happens in our psyche that we lose that, and why do we lose this huge, vast imagination?
Well, you know, we accumulate knowledge and ideas, and we go and we get educated, and we think that that's kind of silly and childish and unimportant. Who wants to play anymore? That's not what adults do. But creative people, and I don't just mean like artists, I also mean like inventors and even people in the sciences or entrepreneurs who maintain that closeness to their childhood. They keep that spirit and they keep playing with their G.I. Joes, but on a different level, right? So if you're an artist, if you write fiction or you're a film director, you're not literally with your G.I. Joe and imagining games, but you're putting it onto film, you're putting it in a book, and it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I think like you enter college, university, and you start thinking of yourself as being more and more important and big, and the kind of small things like just playing with simple stuff, you think you've grown out of it, but you need to go back to it.
I so agree, and I used to tell some students in the universities and lectures that something so similar to what you said, that if you want to stay creative in your field, you have to be as curious or close to as curious as you were when you were kids, because you watch a child, Robert, they touch the floor and they taste it and they're like, no. Then they open drawers. They have no shame or fear that, I'm being judged.
Yeah.
They want to dance, they literally start to bounce as if nobody's there. They want to try something, they want to eat something. They're so pure and open.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the judgment and society and knowledge makes you think, no, like you're not supposed to do that. And then suddenly you're boxed into like a certain behavior. And it's sad.
It is sad, but like, so the reason children are like that is they're seeing the world for the first time. Everything is new. They're looking at the sky and wow, I've never really seen anything like that. You know, I can remember I was 5 years old and my parents, we were on a trip and we're driving into the city of San Francisco, which is probably the most beautiful city in America. And I see all the lights across in the Golden Gate Bridge and all the beautiful, and the water and everything. And I was like, my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I've never forgotten that memory. But now if I drive there, I don't see any of that. It's the first time. And so I have a special bicycle that I ride up here in the hills around here, because obviously with my leg, I can't really ride a normal bicycle. And as I'm riding and I'm going, what if I were looking at all of these things for the first time? I ride on this several, hundreds of times, but now imagine, Robert, that you're seeing these particular trees, these particular coyotes that are kind of crawling past you or running past you. Imagine it's the first time that you're seeing that and how wonderful that is. It's never going to be the same as when you were a child, but you can recapture some of that through how you think. And the book that I'm writing is all just about recapturing that kind of spirit. And I have a lot of exercises in there for how you can do that kind of thing.
That's nice, Robert. How were you as a teenager?
I had hair down to here.
Okay.
I was a hippie. I dressed like a hippie. I wore secondhand clothes. My parents hated it. I was into, rock and drugs. I took drugs. But I also was very interested in classical music and literature. But I was a rebel. I was really not. My parents. I hope my mom isn't going to be watching this, but my mom's still alive. My parents were very kind of bourgeois. I don't mean to judge that, because there's something good about very middle class. But I was kind of not wanting that world. So I wanted something else, and I kind of went far in the other direction, and so I was very rebellious and very much wanting to be myself and find my own way in life. So they wanted me to go to law school or become a doctor, My parents are Jewish, so it's a very Jewish kind of thing. I wanted nothing to do with that. I was into literature. I was going to be an English major. I ended up studying classics, ancient Greek and Latin, the least practical subject you could ever study in the university. There's nothing more impractical than ancient languages, which is the last thing that they wanted me to do with my education. So I was very rebellious. I wanted to go my own way.
Earlier, like 10 minutes ago, you said something. You said everything. What is the word?
Amor fati.
Amor fati. That it's also Islamic. In Islam, we have this idea that, whatever is happening is for the best, as God's will. Or
of course.
And it's so true when you said it's a mindset, because you could be playing with the same marbles or variables and say, I'm a victim.
Yeah.
Or you make it work for you, not against you. So that's the main mindset, is somebody who gets into, unfortunately gets raped, could protect 1,000 women maybe after, or somebody can really, unfortunately, fall in this very dark place.
Right.
And I'm not judging. I'm saying certain people, I think Maya Angelou mentioned it, Oprah Winfrey mentioned it, and they made all of these traumatic experiences, and these are extreme examples, work for them rather than against them.
Yeah.
So it is a mindset.
It is. It's exactly what I'm writing about right now. It's this chapter that I'm writing about. I call it the dynamical sublime. And what I mean is life involves resistance. It involves pressure. You can't get anything that you want in life. There are things that are always causing you, stopping you, impeding your progress. It could be other people. It could be forces going on in the world. It can be a pandemic. It can be your own mortality. So there are these resistant factors in life. And you can either crawl inside yourself and go into a shell and complain and whine and feel like a victim and say, oh, life is so much against me. Or you can embrace that, and you can use the pressure and resistance to develop yourself inwardly. So I talk in this chapter about people like Nelson Mandela, who's thrown into a prison in South Africa, some of the worst conditions you can imagine, right? And he uses that experience. It took him years of a lot of work, but he used that experience to kind of find a way to not let it affect him and not let him dominate him and control him. And he developed kind of an inner freedom, and he developed out of that experience this message of love and forgiveness. He could forgive even his oppressors, right? So instead of using that moment to feel all defensive and feeling like you're a victim, that the world is against you, to go out into the world, to go outward instead of inward and project something positive. And that's what pressure and that's what pain and suffering should be like. I say in this chapter, it's going to be hard for me to understand because it's an elaborate idea, but pain and suffering are actually sacred. They're actually a blessing in disguise because they take you out of your normal day-to-day routines and they show you what life is really like. Life is harsh. It's difficult. There's death is waiting you. But you're living in this kind of floating world where you're completely, outside of that and you think everything's just fine. But when you're suffering, you're directly confronting the reality of life, right? The fact that all animals, all living things have to go through this, it kind of connects you to the suffering of all creatures. And it's a sacred experience because it's lifting you out of your life and it's giving you the possibility to transform yourself psychologically, intellectually, and spiritually. Does that make any sense to you?
Makes a lot of sense. You reminded me of a country that I always get wrong, so I'm not going to mention the country, but it's somewhere in Asia, and they claim that they're one of the happiest people because they get reminded of death around 5 times a day. And people might think that's weird or eerie, but I understand it's similar to what you said. Reminding oneself of death makes you enjoy and savor moments and appreciate things way more. Like you said, you're on your bike and you see a tree you've always seen, but when you know that it's finite time on earth, you're like, I really love this tree. So I understand why they might be the happiest.
I actually have a tree that I literally do that with.
Okay.
Every time I take my ride, I stop and I just watch that tree and I watch the light playing off of it. And I'm actually literally in love with that tree. But after I had my stroke, and as I said, I was driving my car right near here when I had it. And my wife forced me to get off the road, and because I was about to get in some horrible accident, and she called the ambulance, and I went into a coma. If it had been 1 minute later, I'd either be brain dead or I'd be completely dead, right? So I emerge from that and I come home, and it's gotten a little bit less sharp than it was originally, but now I look out the window and I see things and I go, I might not be seeing this right now. And it just has a different intensity to it when you know that your time is short, when you know that everything is impermanent. It makes you appreciate the people around you, makes you appreciate the life that you have. So,
I was, speaking to my therapist about this point, and I think there is a split on how a person can benefit from such circumstances. I don't want to call it a near-death experience, but recently we had a near huge accident experience where my car caught fire, but it was minutes before I got into it, like it complete. So a lot of people, and then I was talking to my therapist about it, and he said, Anas, have you sat down and realized how fortunate, because you were supposed to be in that car. If I tell you how things panned out, I was fortunate that I was in a shoot like this. It just got delayed. So it delayed me from getting...
When your car just exploded?
Not like the movies, but it literally caught fire while it was parked. My driver was waiting for me, so he literally stepped out to get a coffee or something to eat. And it just went to smoke and then boof, like it was on fire.
Exploded?
Not exploded, because cars, that's quite a myth. It usually doesn't, but it caught fire that is very strong. So now, of course, if you're in the car, you can get locked in if it's an electric button car, and then you're screwed. Or if you're driving on the highway and it catches fire, you could get in a very bad accident.
Sure.
So me and the doctor were talking, and he said, Anas, have you comprehended the situation? I'm like, yeah, but I'm kidding. He's like, it seems like you're keeping busy. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I think I would recommend that you really take a moment. It could be 2 seconds, just to be really grateful that you weren't in this car. So why am I saying this? What you went through, you could get overly addicted to writing books or doing seminars and talks and distract yourself from really truly looking at this tree. Or you can say, you know what, Robert? Appreciate this life because you just were close and you got a second chance. You see, two different people.
Yeah.
How they respond. So...
Well, most people, I'm reading a lot now about near-death experiences because it's quite a phenomenon since the 60s. People never even talked about it until the 1960s. And there are tons of books about it. And it's really like what I'm going to be talking about in the last chapter. But most people who have near-death experiences kind of react the way I did, right? Sometimes it can be a very hellish experience, but the sensation, you're almost outside of your own body, right? And when oxygen is not going to your brain and strange things start happening, you see, this is something that I'm going to be writing about. We don't realize it, but the human brain creates the world that we perceive, right? Literally. You think you're seeing the world as it is, but that's not true. It's the brain creating it. It creates colors. It takes images that are all sharp and all hazy, and it creates sharpness. It creates objects. It creates borders around things. That's not how things actually are. An eagle or a dog or a cat, they don't see the same world that you see. It's something that our brains create. Our brains create a world for us. And when your brain breaks down, as in a near-death experience, and oxygen is cut off from reaching the brain, suddenly you're actually experiencing the world as it is, not as the brain filters it. And it's an ecstatic experience. It's complete ecstasy, because you realize that we see like a subject separated from an object. Like, I'm different from you. I have my own world. You have your world. But when things break down, you see that that's actually an illusion, that everything is really one. Now, that's a cliche, and I'm just putting words to it because it's a feeling. It's not things that go into words. But when you come close to death, it is an ecstatic experience. And I'm reading a book right now called Near-Death Experiences in the Ancient World. It talks about ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, India. And the idea is all of our concepts of heaven and hell and the afterlife really came from people who had near-death experiences. Now, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, and he argues it very well. But there's a definite connection between people's concept of an afterlife or what happens to us after we're dead to people who have near-death experiences. And mostly, it's a very positive experience. I mean, you can take, and the movies have been made about it, people who are miserable, who are the worst sons of bitches, who are unhappy, discontented, who hate everything. They have a near-death experience and it completely alters them.
That's so true. Sometimes that jolt can switch something. Who have been your best teachers?
Well, probably one of the biggest influences in my life is my sister. I'm very close to my sister. I love her very much. She's 4 years older than me. She's almost raised me in some ways, and she had a very big impact on me. And it was with her that we invented all these games and had all this fun, and we kind of created a separate world from our parents. So she played a very important role in my life. And but then I had a teacher when I was in high school, a man named Russell Smith. I went to Palisades High School here in Los Angeles. And he was an English teacher. And I was maybe 15 years old, something like that, with my long hair. And I thought I was the greatest writer in the world. I thought I was such hot shit, you know? And I wrote this essay that I forget what it was about. And I thought it was really, really good. I was going to get an A on it. And I ended up getting a C. And there were all these red pencil marks over it. And the red pencil marks meant that you didn't do a very good job, right? Just seeing all that red made me go, oh, goddamn. And he basically explained to me, he said, Robert, writing is a form of communication. It's not about you expressing yourself. It's about communicating to other people. If you're just inside your own world and you're just writing things that excite you, it doesn't have any meaning. It's not good writing. It's egotistical. You're writing for other people. You're communicating an idea to others. So you have to focus on that and not about how great you are and how, just playing word games and such. And it changed forever the way I write. To this day, when I write a book, I'm not thinking about my clever ideas and word games. I'm going deeply into the reader and how they're going to experience this and how this could maybe change their way of looking at the world. So just that one little thing he taught me when I was 15 years old has forever changed the course of my life, and I'll never forget it.
I love that. You've worked, I read, more than 50 jobs?
Yeah.
Which one was the best one?
Well, I have to say, I was 21 years old. And I graduated college and I went to Paris. I was traveling all around Europe for over a year, but I ended up in Paris. And I got a job in a hotel, the Hotel Saint-André des Arts. And it's in this beautiful Latin Quarter. I was the receptionist at the hotel. And it's where all the models stayed, the fashion models stayed. I'm 21 years old. And the most beautiful women in the world are passing through every day. They're staying at the hotel. They're visiting the hotel. It was like I was in a candy store or something. It was wonderful.
I'm sure.
And I was in Paris, and I was learning the language, and I was interacting with all these great people, and I was young. That was probably the most exciting job I ever had.
That is a good job. And what was the worst one?
I knew you were going to ask. I was here in LA. I was maybe 30 years old or so. I just moved back here. And I got a job in Pasadena, I believe, at a detective agency. And I was what you call a skip tracer. And a skip tracer is, let's say, somebody in Wisconsin jumped bail. They didn't pay, they had bail money and then they just left. And they need to be found. The law needs to find them, right? So my job was using just the phone and never going out of the office, calling people, pretending to be somebody that I wasn't, and finding out where they were, right? And I was actually very good at it. So you call like the mother, you go, I'm a buddy with Frank. We went to high school together. We were buddies. And you do some research and you know the places. You can name places that he went to. You could pretend like you were actually a friend. And you say, I'm trying to find out where he is. And she goes, and the mother will go, oh, I don't really know, but maybe this. Anyway, you go through this chain and you eventually find him. It was the most depressing job I've ever had in my life. I came home every day and I almost wanted to cry. I was like taking people and letting the law find them. And I was lying and I was good at it. And I just felt really ugly about myself. I felt like this is not who I want to be. I had other jobs in Hollywood that were also really soul-sucking jobs that I hated as well. I'd say 90% of my jobs were awful. And that's why I wrote the 48 Laws of Power. So to pick which is the most awful is very difficult. I can easily pick the best one, but the most awful, there's too much to choose from.
And why do you do what you do? You've done a lot and you're successful in how the world sees success. You're not as young as the 21-year-old in Paris. So you can say, you know what, I want to chill and I want to sit in my garden, but you still have this hunger, Robert, and the way even you're talking and you're working hard on this book and you're putting part of your soul still with an underline. So why do you do all of this?
It's a good question. Probably the answer isn't all positive. Sometimes what motivates you are kind of the demons that are inside of you. And you don't realize that. You think they're angels, but they're actually demons. So part of my problem was, growing up, was I never felt good about myself. I never felt like I was doing enough. I never felt like I was respected or loved enough. So you take that with you through your whole life. You never leave that behind. And it makes you always want to do more and more and more to please people, to get attention, to get that validation and that love that you never had. So part of my compulsion to continually work has a slight negative origin, I definitely believe. But on the other hand, my mind is so active that if I don't have something to put it onto, I get depressed and I start chewing on myself, consuming myself. So I was in that ambulance from the hospital going home. I'd been a week in the hospital. And I'm in the back seat there and my mind is going like this. Like 5 ideas for books were coming to me 7 days after my stroke. And I just realized if I don't keep working, I'm going to die inside. My body has been wrecked. You saw how I walk, the left side of my body, but my mind is still active. If I don't write another book and I just live with my body the way it is, I'd probably be dead by now. I probably would have committed suicide. I need a purpose. I need a reason. Writing a book is that purpose. Now, I can tell you this, that once this book is finished, I'm not going to write another book like it. It was too draining. It took too long. I'm going to write something simpler and easier. This took 6 years. I'm going to write a book that'll take 1 year or 2 years. I can't physically do it anymore. Part of the problem is I can't type. So how do you write a book when you can't type? I have to handwrite everything, right? And then I have to dictate it into the computer. And then I have to edit it with one hand. It's very laborious. It's very difficult. It's very draining. Normally, I take a walk to clear my mind. I can't take a walk. I can't go for a swim. I'm trapped. So the process is very draining. And so I think I need a break. I can't write another book like that. I'm going to write a book about cats or about something very simple or easy.
Boredom, we said.
Huh?
We said boredom.
I'll write a book about boredom. Yeah.
What is something that you do that you know is different than anyone else? How they do it? Like, what is something that you do that you know is different?
Well, I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but it might be slightly OCD. You know what I mean by that? Okay. But like, I make a ritual out of everything, right? So I love rituals. So I have, this is going to sound ridiculous. I'm confessing terrible things here. So I have like these shirts that I wear, right? And there's like 15 of them in the summer. They rotate exactly in a circle. So I know like this day, you know, like it changes each day. So I never wear the same shirt. I do the same thing with my shampoo, with my toothpaste, with my breakfasts. Everything is kind of rotated in these different rituals. And then some days I wake up and I go, wow, it's the day for this. How interesting. I don't know what that says about me, but I don't know if many other people quite have that kind of level of obsessive compulsive disorder. So I'm confessing something a little bit naughty about myself.
Thank you. It's nice to get some exclusive bits about you. It's interesting how, you know, even athletes, sometimes they'll tie their shoe before a game in a certain way.
Yeah.
Like it's something to do with our psychology. Maybe it's comforting.
Yeah.
That you don't have to think about something, or you feel this is my favorite socks, or some people wear this favorite boxers because they won so many games in them.
Yeah.
It's interesting how, you know, we attach ourselves to these little rituals, even though maybe sometimes deep down, you know, it's just like a thing, but it makes you feel better.
Well, also, when you have a little bit of this OCD or whatever you might want to call it, having too many choices is very paralyzing. So knowing that this is the day I have to wear this, this is the day that I use this shampoo, I don't have to decide, I don't have to think about it. So it gives life this kind of ease to it. It's not my decision. It's just the ritual. It's deciding what I do.
I read that you mentioned that you went through depression.
Yeah.
You had suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And you were yet ambitious. So I don't know if they all came at the same phase, but that's how I read it. And I'm like, how interesting. Like there's depression, there's suicidal thoughts, and there's ambition. Like, were they all coinciding and coexisting at the same time?
Well, a lot of suicidal people were ambitious. In fact, because they were ambitious and they had no success, they felt very suicidal. They had very low self-esteem. So that's not all people who commit suicide, but a lot of very famous writers and artists have ended up committing suicide because they never felt like they were accomplishing what they wanted to. So, you know, I've always been very ambitious. I'm a very competitive person. I don't like losing, even in games and such, right? So, so I'm in my 30s, and I know that there's something inside of me that could be interesting for the world to express. I know it deep inside. I've had these weird experiences, I have these weird thoughts. They could amount to something interesting, but I haven't been able to figure out how to do it. I try journalism, I try writing plays, I try writing novels, I try writing screenplays. It doesn't click. It's not who I am. It's not working. But I know I can do something great. And that sense of disappointment in yourself, of frustration, of knowing that you have potential but you can't realize it, was what made me feel deep down very, very depressed. And very much like, if I never find this, what is life worth? What is it? My work and creating something is so important to me that if I can't do it, I don't want to live. And so it was my ambition that actually drove me to feeling depressed and suicidal.
And how you got out of it, I could assume, is when you found the click? Or it's not as simple?
Well, I've been with the same woman for many years. My wife, I love her very deeply. She's a filmmaker. She's in Czechoslovakia right now, making a film. She's been with me. She lived through all the years of my depression, and she knows about it, and she knows that she can say the moments where I went up and down and sunk very deeply. And so it wasn't like I was always every morning suicidal. I was young. I was doing things that I liked. I was excited, but it just kept sinking and sinking and sinking. And then you'd get up and then you'd sink again. And so how do I get out of this? And then I wrote, it was like 94 or so, I wrote some plays that we put on together here in Los Angeles. And that felt good. I felt like expressing myself. They were very weird plays that nobody understood, but it felt good. That kind of lifted me a little bit. And then a year later, I'm in Italy. An old friend from Berkeley, where I went to college, he's Dutch, and he's in Italy, and he's like helping to develop a new media school started by Benetton. And he wanted me to come over to help write the book that would launch this school. An absolutely ridiculous, scheme. Like, who writes a book to start a school, right? Already it seemed really dubious. But Italy, I mean, who's going to turn down a chance to go to Italy so naturally? I said, sure, yeah. And I go there, and it's a total fiasco. It's a total scam. It's just a place where people can eat good pasta and have espresso and argue and argue and argue, but nothing ever happens, right? So on the one hand, it's fun. I'm eating good food. I'm not in LA anymore. It's exciting, right? But on the other hand, it's kind of depressing because nothing is happening. It's just so political. It's so Machiavellian. And there's this other man there named Joost Elfers, a Dutchman, who's a friend of my friend. And he and I are both disenchanted. He's this older man. He's brilliant. He's a brilliant designer of books. And one day we're walking in Venice, Italy, along the quays of Brasilia in front of the Piazza San Marco, one of the most beautiful spots in the whole world. And he asked me out of the blue, he goes, Robert, do you have any idea for books? And suddenly that click that you mentioned clicks. And all of my agony, all of my depression, all of my frustration, it just suddenly came out of me almost like I was vomiting. And I told him this story about power, how everybody in the world wants power, but nobody wants to talk about it. This whole school that we're in, everybody's trying to act like it's so liberal, but it's all about power. And I tell him a story about Louis XIV and his finance minister, and how he threw the finance minister in prison for corruption, but in fact it was because he outshone the master, law number one. And that shows you how people's egos rule the world. And he goes, oh my God, that's fantastic, Robert, that's a book. And he said he would pay me to write while I first had to go home and write a treatment, and then if he sells the book, he'll pay me to write it. Everything changed because I realized that all of my negative experiences that I had accumulated over 38 years can now serve as grist for the mill, can now become the 48 laws of power. I don't know if you can understand that, but all my misery had a purpose. It had a purpose for writing the book that will reveal to the world the power games that people played, the power games that I had witnessed, the power games that I had been a victim of for so many years. And so it just turned around in one moment. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't be here talking to you if I didn't have that opportunity.
Can I edit a sentence that you just said? You said it all happened in one moment. It happened from listening to it happened a million moments before that. Not in one. You went through so many moments.
Yeah.
But it looks if we really zoom out, it looks like that moment. But there's a whole thousands and millions of decisions and experiences you made for that moment to happen in Italy.
Yeah, I mean, what I often tell people is, If that had happened to me when I was 25 and I had the same thing and he asked me for a book, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have mattered. Nothing would have ever come of it. I was ready. It was my moment. I had been so beaten down that I was ready to do it. And I was so motivated. You know, we say, get rich or die trying. This was my get rich or die trying. Are they going to make this book work? Or that was the end of me. So the motivation was very deep. But yeah, it was an accumulation of thousands of moments that went into it.
I read also something about observations of masks. When was the first time you realized, Robert, that people wear masks?
Probably when I was about 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember.
Like really young.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure, but look, parents, you know, so I'm growing up basically in the 1960s, well before you were even born, I imagine. Okay.
81.
81. Okay, there you're a kid. So I'm growing up in the 1960s, right? A different era. And parents then come from a different generation. They come from the Depression era and World War II, right? And so their whole world was out of the 1950s, which was lots of drinking and smoking and social events and having these parties and such. And I would be a child and I'd be looking at the world and I'd be going, they're all actors. They're all fake. They're all playing a game, you know? I can't say I intellectually thought that when I was 5 years old, but I know that was a deep part of my experience, is observing people and how fake they are and how they're always pretending and they're always laughing when they don't really feel it. And they're smiling, they don't feel it. And they're telling stories to kind of get rid of their pain. People have a lot of pain inside of them, but they try and mask it with a smile, with a laugh. You know, I'm not judging it. That's a good thing in some ways. But they're actors. Everyone is an actor. And looking at my parents and their parties revealed to me at a very early age that people are just acting, you know? Yeah. And I remember one time, I hope my mom wasn't hearing this. I was at Berkeley going to college. And that's my drug days, right? And I had taken some, I think it was LSD, and I got on the plane to go home to see my parents. And I arrive at their house, and I'm still kind of tripping, and they're having a party. I go, shit, man. I'm like tripping ahead in my brain, and I have to socialize with all these people. Like, I freaked out. But then I became like really talkative. And everyone said afterwards, my mom told me, they go, Robert, you finally came out of your shell. Everyone was saying how wonderful you were. They'd never seen you like that. They thought I was just suddenly, you know, blossoming, but it was really like the LSD. I was acting based because of this psychedelic drug that made people's faces look all weird and everything. You know, so a lot of dissociative experiences where I see people not as they are, but as what they pretend to be.
You know, I experienced it not as early as you, but in my later, maybe teenage years or young adult years, where I would, if I'm in a nightclub or at a lounge or at a restaurant and they're, you know, dancing in front of the table and sparkles everywhere, I like to observe people. I find it very interesting. So till today, I'll sit down and I'm like, you are really not enjoying yourself. Like you can tell, because a lot of them are on their phones.
Wait, you're saying that about other people or about yourself?
No, I'm watching.
Oh.
I don't enjoy a lot of loud places, but whenever I am in one, especially these loud places where it's so distracting, it's a lot of drinking or music, and you're looking at them, you're like, are you even like having fun because you're on your phone?
Yeah.
And you're taking videos of yourself to tell people that, listen, I'm having fun, by the way. But if you're truly having fun, like really 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, you kind of forget to touch your phone. And they're like, oh, maybe you'll catch it for a moment. But it's weird. Like I watch it and it's the mask thing or the act.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, we're having fun because we're supposed to be having fun if there's sparkles out of this champagne. And you're like, you have the wrong definitions of joy,
Yeah.
you know?
You know, are you a writer?
No.
You should be a writer. You have a writer's mind.
Really?
Yeah. You'd probably write a very interesting book. You should think
I
about
am doing one with a ghostwriter, but I'm good at speaking. And they would type what I say. But to actually write, I've never tried.
Well, you've got kind of a writer's mind, I can tell. You should think about it.
It's the first time I hear that.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I think so.
Only if
I'm
we try.
usually not wrong. But...
we try, we will know.
Okay.
I'm a trier.
Okay.
Can I get the red? Yeah. Okay, I have some red card questions. Red card questions, I usually would get maybe hypothetical questions, faster questions, some quotes.
You want me to keep my answers shorter?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't have that style in my interviews. You just speak as you want to speak.
Okay.
So the guy you mentioned is Joost Elfers, you said?
Joost.
Okay. Okay, so I had him here, so since you already explained who he was, you wrote some great books, such as The 48 Laws of Power, Mastery, The Laws of Human Nature, The Art of Seduction, and more. Why are some books banned in some U.S. prisons?
Well, the only book that's really banned, as far as I know, is The 48 Laws of Power. And I don't think it's banned in every single prison. Certain states have banned it. And I get emails, not so much anymore, but I used to get a lot of emails from prisoners who read the book, and they would tell me how much it helped them. So there's two sides of the story. It's kind of schizophrenic. From the prisoner's point of view, you know, I've never been in prison, obviously, but I can put my mind, because I'm a writer, inside that world. And it's a very vicious world. And I've known prisoners. When I did the book with 50 Cent, one of his assistants had spent 20 years in prison for like a marijuana charge. In New York, they had these laws that if you broke laws 3 times, they threw the book at you. Really the nicest man. And he explained to me, but I read books about prisons because I'm very interested in it. It's a brutal environment in the United States in particular. You know, there's nothing, it's the 48 Laws of Power in its purest form. All these psychological games, all this manipulation, all these games of domination that are going on among prisoners, with the wardens, with the people policing the prisons. It's an elaborate, pure game of power. And it's very brutal, it's very ruthless. Right. So they would tell me, the people who wrote me, because now I don't think they're allowed to write me, they would write and say, it calmed me down. I could see the games that were being played. I understood it on a higher level. I wasn't getting involved in this, that, or the other. It gave me perspective. Your book, they would say, and I'm not bragging, this is true stuff. Your book saved my life in prison. I have accumulated hundreds of these emails, these stories of people who said it literally saved them, okay? So from the prisoner's point of view, it's not being used to manipulate people, it's being used to kind of figure it out. Now, there probably were some prisoners who used it in the opposite way, and they obviously aren't going to write me about it. So a little bit of this is, my perspective is a little bit slanted, because the people who would save are the ones motivated to write me, but there are a lot of them. But from the authorities' point of view, their game is control. They're controlling these people, not just physically, but psychologically, right? They want them to feel helpless. Because if you have prisoners who don't feel helpless, well, you're in trouble, right? And so from their point of view, this is a game that's teaching them how to survive well in prison. We don't want that. We want them to be terrified. We want them to be confused, right? So we better ban this book. There's a new trend in prisons, and it's a trend in the culture in general, I'm afraid to say, because as prisons go, so go the world. As Dostoevsky wrote, you can judge a culture by how it treats, by its prisons, right? So it's not just isolated to prisons, but there's a whole trend in prison life to curate what they can have intellectually, mentally, and creatively. So they can only see the most moronic TV shows, the ones that are like going to keep them in a state of arrested development. They're not supposed to watch like political shows with analysis. And the books used to be, the prison library for decades was the only place a prisoner could go for relief from the physical world, because you could read a book, it could take you outside of the prison, right? That is how Nelson Mandela developed himself. That is how Malcolm X developed himself. That's what Martin Luther King did for the few days he was in prison. The books, the library was their salvation, right? Well, now you can't just read any book. They curate the books for you. They give you their version of a Kindle, of an ebook, and you have 1,000 books you can read. But none of them are challenging. None of them are intellectually developed. They're all mindless, stuff, Harry Potter or whatever it is that they want to feed them. They're feeding them. They're controlling their minds. That's how the world that we're going to end up soon enough, at least in the United States, where they're going to be curating what we can read and what we can think. And so the 48 Laws of Power doesn't mix well with that kind of culture.
You said never outshine the master. Why?
Well, Anis, you have to realize in the world, you have to learn this the hard way, because most young people don't learn it quickly enough, or they never learn it. Everybody has an ego. Everybody you encounter has an ego. If you somehow trip on their ego, if you somehow violate their ego, if you somehow make them feel insecure, you're going to pay a price. And if you go through life not realizing that, you're going to accumulate people with all kinds of resentments. And at some point, they're going to act against you, right? So your boss who's above you, and everybody has a boss at some point, even you have a boss, somebody above you, right? The person financing your company or whatever. You would like to think, wow, they're so powerful. They're not insecure, right? They must be the, strongest person because they're the boss, right? But they're the most insecure of all, because they're always wondering, do people really like me? Everybody smiles because I am the boss. They're all yes to yes, you're wonderful, you're great. But deep down, do they really like me? Do they really respect me, right? The bosses, the people who have power, are the most insecure of all. They're always worried about whether people approve of them. They're always worried about who's after their job. If you somehow inadvertently make them feel insecure, you may make them feel like maybe you are more popular than they are. You make them feel that maybe you are more intelligent than they are. If you make them feel like you are more good looking than they are, you're going to trick that little insecure wire in their brain. And you're going to pay for it. You're going to be in a lot of pain. They're going to fire you. They're going to make your life miserable. They're never going to admit it's because you made them feel insecure. They'll say you did this, that, you're not performing well, you're not blah, 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 blah. But they're going to make your life miserable. So you don't want to outshine the master. You want to realize everybody has an ego, and you want to work with their egos and not work against them.
But Robert, can we say that some masters are more controlled with their ego and they're open to having smarter people and all of that, or am I not?
Of course, it's a generalization. And as all generalizations, there's a bit of falseness to it. Yeah, there's gradations. But even the most brilliant, humane, liberal, open-minded, wonderful, loving boss of them all has their insecurities. I'm sorry to say. It's a law. Some are worse at it. Some have much bigger egos than others. But everybody has an ego. And so even if they accept having smart people around them, and they're more open to being challenged, and they say, come on, everybody, I want you to tell me if my ideas are bad or stupid. And then you go ahead and you tell them that. They might accept it, but they might not. So be careful. Learn this law. It's a very important law. And even in the most open, liberal environment, it's a danger as well. It's always a danger. And it's not just your boss, it's your colleagues as well.
You also said, crush your enemy totally. Why?
All right. Well, this is a very misunderstood law.
So good. We can talk about it.
See, people nowadays are so impatient that they don't read books. They skim them, they get a little clip from it, they read the little paragraph, they see the title and they go, oh my God, crush your enemy totally. They don't goddamn read the fucking chapter. And what I explain in the chapter is this is not about you as an individual facing your enemies and crushing them. It's like about businesses, it's about groups, it's about governments, it's about warfare, it's about politics. Okay? It's about Republicans versus the Democrats. It's about Google versus Microsoft, right? It's about Russia versus Ukraine. The dynamic in these competitive environments is you either win and demoralize the other side or you're not going to win at all. You can't keep them around, okay? So people go, oh my God, that's so cruel, Robert. You're so violent. You're so amoral, all right? I'm sorry, it just drives me crazy. It makes me so angry. What do you think goes on in the tech world? What do you think the reason why Google and Amazon and Meta and all the others are so powerful? They crushed every single enemy in their path completely. They obliterated them. I've given talks at Microsoft, and I know people who Microsoft. This guy invited me over there years ago to give a talk. He had started up his own startup in San Francisco. I don't know what it was about. What does Microsoft do? Their strategy? They buy the company. When they buy the company, they've crushed them. They no longer have a competition. Gobble, 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 gobble. Eat up every single competitor. That's what made Amazon the beast that it is. So don't come to me with your kind of whining about crusher and tell how it's not the world, how it's evil. That is the law that governs the business world. I'm sorry to tell you, open your eyes. That is how the world operates. Don't be so naive.
Can we say that the jungle operates the same way?
The jungle? Which jungle?
Like a jungle with animals where a wild animal realizes there's another that's now disintegrating the power of the wolf pack or whatnot, and then they're not going to have two chefs in one kitchen. Does that make sense?
Well, there's predatory animals and there are animals that are prey. Predatory animals are all about territory and marking off their territory. And wolves, if there is another wolf invading their territory, they will kill it, right? It's their territory. So among predators, definitely that law pervades, yeah.
You said pose as a friend, work as a spy. You're getting annoyed with the quotes I'm bringing. But I think these quotes are good because we get to hear your side of them and a proper explanation rather than somebody just putting it on their Instagram story, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You want to know what that means? Well,
your elaboration, of course.
Well, you know, so sometimes people, friends, aren't necessarily who you think they are. Each law has two sides to it, right? There's the side of the aggressor who is using that law against you, right? Amoral, whatever you want to call them, manipulative. And then there's you, perhaps you, the victim of their games, right? So half the purpose of the laws is to reveal to you what other people might be doing to you. So another law in the book that people talk about as being evil, which might be on your list, is get other people to do the work but always take the credit. And in Hollywood, I was the victim of that. So I'm not just telling you go out and take credit for other people's work. People are doing that to you. So pose as a friend, work as a spy. If you're trying to gather information on people, on somebody that you don't like or somebody who's your competitor or your rival, if they know that you're a rival, they're going to be on their guard. They're going to be wary. They're going to be defensive. They're going to protect themselves. But if you lower their resistance, the power game is about lowering people, going around in the world. You're playing chess. You're lowering people's resistance so they don't defensive, so they don't know what you're up to. So they have no idea the game that you're playing. They think you're friendly. They think you're warm. They think you're a really nice guy. But deep down, you're playing this game, right? If they know you're playing the game, they're never going to fall for it. So 90% of the game of power is disguising all that. So if you're trying to gather information about power, about people, and what they're up to and their intentions, you have to lower their resistance. You have to become their friend. You have to get on their side, and then they won't suspect that you're actually secretly gathering information from them. And information, mind you, it's not just spying. It's not just stealing things from their drawers, secrets, right? It's observing them. So let's say I actually am your enemy right now, Hannes. I really don't want the good in you. I want to get something out of you, okay? Just we're pretending, okay? All right? So I become your friend. And we hang out, we're buddies, and we go to these restaurants in Dubai and everything. And then you start opening up and you start revealing to me some of your secrets, some of your weaknesses. I'm gathering information that I can now use against you, right? So that's what it's about. It's gathering information on people. But be wary of people who do that game to you. They might be playing that on you. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And just to summarize it to any listener, so your books are a huge form of awareness. Not only that you should do what I'm telling you it could be being done to you, so be aware, don't be naive.
Well, listen, people who are truly amoral, who are true power players, they don't need my book. They know it. It's in their DNA. It's in their fingers. They know how to play the game. In fact, they don't read books usually. That's the type that doesn't need to read books, right? And so the book is really for those who are naive, like I was. I'm not a great power player in the world because I never had any power until I was 39 years old and wrote the books. I was pretty low down on the scale, right? So I'm not writing it from the point of view of a Donald Trump or an Elon Musk. I'm writing it from the point of view of somebody very low down looking up. And so you need, people are too naive in this world, you know? Your parents don't tell you what the world is like. You enter the work world full of these ideals and these concepts, and they're not real. You don't understand how the world operates. It can be kind of brutal out there. Not always, but it can be. You're too naive. You're too trusting of people sometimes. I'm not telling you to be paranoid. I'm telling you to be a little bit aware and to be on your guard sometimes. This will not make you an ugly person. It will spare you a lot of unnecessary drama. So let's say you don't read Robert's book. You don't care. You don't think about people's egos. You inadvertently offend your boss when you think you're not. And now suddenly he or she is making your life hell, and then they fire you. And you're like, this has happened to me before I wrote the books. And you go home and you're miserable and you go, what happened there? I was doing a good job and now I'm fired? And it makes you confused and it makes you emotional and it makes you skittish and fearful of your next job. It can ruin your life. If you avoid that and you don't outshine the master and this doesn't happen, you've spared yourself 2 years of internal turmoil and drama and doubts about yourself.
Have you ever used the laws in your personal life?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course. I wouldn't have written the book if I hadn't.
When was the first time you felt powerless?
Well, I think in childhood, you know, children are pretty helpless, and me feeling somewhat neglected and feeling like I have to fend my way in this world, I felt pretty powerless. And that's why I retreated into my own world. I invented all of these games. A lot of them had to do with sports and warfare, which were my two passions as a child, right? I had army men and I invented these war games. And I loved baseball and football. I'm American, I can't help it. I invented these very elaborate games. When I entered these worlds, it was my world. Nobody else lived there. Nobody else could enter it. Nobody else could bother me. I had control, I had power. And so I used my powerlessness to create my own worlds where I was sort of in control.
And what does power mean to you today?
Power to me today is freedom. It's the freedom for me. You're asking me personally?
Yes.
I don't have a boss. I don't have anybody censoring me. I don't have anybody telling me what kind of books I have to write. I can write what I want. My editor, basically gives me carte blanche. I have so much freedom, it's scary. And I appreciate it and I understand, because for those 38 years, I had no freedom, I had no power. I know what it's like on the other side. So I'm not callous. I understand that I'm very privileged, that I'm unusual that way. But damn it, man, I have so much freedom. It's such a blessing. I can write this chapter now that I'm writing. I don't have to worry about what I say. I can be as brutal as I want to be about what's going on in the world. It's insane. And then, I'm sorry, it's kind of hard for me to not be emotional about it, but I have had a lot of impact on other people, right? And that's probably the most satisfying thing in the world, because I don't really write books for myself or for my ego. I know I'm sounding like I'm trying to promote myself, but it's true. I write it for other people. I write it with trying to help them, seriously, because I could have written books in a year or 2 years that made a lot of money, that had kind of a gimmick behind them and sold well, but they wouldn't have been good. They wouldn't have really done what I wanted. I've taken a lot of time, and I ruined myself physically to the point where I had a stroke, because I really, really, truly want to help people in this world that could be so brutal. And so to get feedback from readers saying the books really, really helped me is a feeling of the most powerful feeling of all. Occasionally it's the opposite, saying you ruined my life. My spouse, my partner, my boss read your book and they screwed me. Not very often, but mostly it's like, man, you saved me so much. You helped me build my business. If it weren't for your book, this wouldn't, blah, 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 would have happened. So that's the kind of power I feel now, and it's very satisfying. I don't take it for granted.
Did you end up writing the book that a young Robert needed?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, so put yourself in my shoes. I'm like 22 years old. I've graduated college, with a degree in classics. My head's in Homer and Thucydides and Shakespeare. Then I'm thrust, after I came back from Paris, into the world of New York. I live in New York, journalism, Esquire magazine. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing all these people walking around. They're like actors. They've got these egos. They're all playing these power games. They're like courtiers in the court of Louis XIV, all flattering these other writers, the editors, etc. It's this game going on. I don't understand what's happening. I get very emotional. I get very confused. I get very upset. I take it personally. The book would have really might help me. Yeah, I think that's very much the case. Yeah.
Mm. What does seduction mean to you? Because you wrote a book about seduction.
Well, it's not a book. It's not a pickup artist book. Let's make that clear. It's not a book for guys who want to go pick up women really quickly and easily, because it's more elaborate than that. It's also a book that's for women seducing men, because I make the point in the book that seduction is a form of power that women invented. It was the only form of power that they had in the ancient world. It was the power of a courtesan, was the power of Cleopatra or Helen of Troy or whomever. Okay, so seduction is not about getting quick sex or anything like that. It's a psychological process of making other people lower their resistance, lower their walls, and open themselves up to you. And when they open themselves up to you, you can make them fall in love with you. You can make them do what you want. You can manipulate them, or yes, you can start a relationship. You can have love, or yes, you can win a political campaign. Kennedy's campaign in 1960 against Nixon was a classic game of seduction, right? or in your marketing campaigns, you're seducing the public, or as an artist trying to win an audience as like a 50 Cent or a filmmaker, you're seducing the public. If you hit people directly in the face, if you use the hard approach and hit them like people do in advertising like they used to do, people get defensive. But if you attack from the side, if you lower their resistance, they open themselves up to your ideas, you can seduce them. So what interested me was the large psychological picture of seduction. What ties together a political, a marketing, a social, and a sexual seduction? What is the psychological process that connects all of these forms together? And that's what I tried to describe in the book.
Do you regret writing any of your books?
Well, as Edith Piaf once sang, moi je ne regrette rien, which means I don't regret anything. What is the point of regret? Can you tell me what the point is?
I know that, some people enjoy regret because their ego is attached to feeling sorry for themselves.
Yeah.
But it's quite a waste of time.
The past is the past. If you want to learn from the past, if you said, I did something wrong, I hurt somebody, all right, I won't do it again. But what's the point of regretting it? Yeah, you're right, it's for their ego. So I've had a lot of tough things. I've made mistakes. I don't regret any of them. I outshone the master and got fired twice, painful experiences. But if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been able to write law number 1 of the 48 Laws of Power. I don't regret anything. And I'm serious about that, or sincere about that.
What does love mean to you?
Well, one of the chapters in the Sublime book is about love. I call Love Sublime.
Okay.
And now love, I'm somebody who loves animals. I've always had dogs and cats in my life. And I'm not putting her in second place behind this. And I have a wife, a girlfriend and wife, right? And so to me, the feeling is of losing yourself in this other being. So the title of that particular chapter is Escape the Prison of the Ego, Love Sublime. So you're trapped inside of your ego. You're trapped inside of your own walls. You're defensive. You have your own experiences. You have your own world. And it can get oppressive. It can feel like you're in a prison. The same thoughts over and over again, the same worries, the same concerns. It's boring. It's banal. Other people draw you out of that world. And when you love someone, you're slowly, slowly dissolving all of those ego barriers. You're entering their world and you have a sense of oneness with their other being, right? And you can have that with animals. You can have that with a man or a woman. You can have that, I guess, with a group. You can have that with the universe as a spiritual experience, which is a part of a lot of religions. But it's the feeling of losing all those hard barriers of the ego. It's softening. In Buddhism, in Zen, they call it ego attrition. The slowly dissolving, smaller and smaller the ego becomes. And as it dissolves, you feel a sense of unity with everything around you. Well, if it's with a person, it's a wonderful feeling. And somehow people think of like there's like a scale, a hierarchy of love, as if love between a man and a woman is degraded, but love with God is something higher. I'm saying no. Love between two people is the highest form of all. It's the complete getting rid of outside of yourself. It is the highest form of love. It is the love that is behind all of the spiritual experiences. So I wrote the chapter because I think people nowadays aren't capable of loving. They're too protective. They're too defensive. They don't want to feel hurt because they don't want to be hurt. They don't want to give so much of themselves. They don't want to be generous with their spirit. They want to protect themselves. So at the slightest kind of conflict with their partner, they retreat and they get into their shell. I'm not saying it's just this generation, but I think it's getting worse and worse and worse. People are more defensive. They're more locked inside themselves. They're more locked inside their phone, right? So I wrote the book because it seems like romantic love between a man and a woman is seen as something corny and sentimental and old-fashioned, and like we've outgrown that here in the 21st century. Man, that is really sad, and that is really pathetic of you. And that is really actually to deprive yourself of some of the greatest emotions that a human can have.
It's a nice answer to the love definition. What's your advice for people who are in love or falling in love? It's good because you just mentioned how it's become difficult.
Well, so in the chapter, I talk about the word falling, which is very appropriate. So you're falling. You're literally like you're on a mountain and you're falling, right? That could be a scary sensation. Like, what if I hit the ground? What if I'm crushed? What if I'm killed by it? And then you become worried and I'm not going to fall. I'm going to catch myself halfway and I'm going to pull myself back up. I'm saying you want to keep falling. So if you have a conflict with the person that you love, which is inevitable, which we've all had and I have even to this day, right? It's not a moment for you to step back and protect yourself and get out of the relationship and go onto Tinder and quickly find somebody else. It's the moment to work on it, right? To move past it, to get outside of yourself, to see their perspective. You know, you find there's something I wrote in The Laws of Human Nature, which is a basic thing of psychology. Human interactions are back and forth. It's never one side doing one thing. So if the other person is suddenly acting prickly and defensive and unpleasant around you, it very well might be coming from you. It might be because you are the one kind of feeling that way. You're infecting them with that emotion. You're projecting it onto them. You're imagining it's all coming from them. They're the one at fault. But actually, it's a game of tennis. It's going back and forth. You're part of it as well, right? So if there are problems, a lot of it could be stemming from yourself. So look inward. And the more that you give of yourself, the more that you stop being so defensive, it infects the other person and they open up to you as well. So am I answering your question? Okay.
That's because if we apply it to people who are falling in love, you're kind of telling them, give more of yourself because it's contagious.
Yeah.
And keep falling.
Yeah. Fall all the way until you hit the ground and splatter.
Or land on your feet.
Yeah.
Do you believe all people are born good?
Do I believe all people are born good? Well, I don't think it's, sometimes it's good to admit that you're ignorant, that you don't know the answer to a question. I don't really know the answer to that question. It's something that, how do you answer that? I mean, there's a concept of the bad seed. So there's a very good movie that was made, I think, in the late 50s, early 60s called The Bad Seed. And it's about this woman, her husband's away in the army, and she has a daughter, this cute little blonde girl, 7, 8 years old. And she's actually incredibly evil. She's like killing people to get their little prize that they won in some ceremony, right? She's killed like 3 people in the course of the movie, but she's so sweet and angelic. And the movie's called The Bad Seed. And in the course of the movie, you learn that probably her parents or grandparents were also killers. So there's a question of, are some people genetically born that way? I don't know. It's a good question. And there's evidence for possibly that. So there's a famous psychoanalyst from the 40s named Melanie Klein, a Freudian psychologist, psychoanalyst. Her specialty was studying babies and infants. And she wrote brilliant books about how infants think and what their world is like, which is a fascinating subject. And she spent her whole life studying them. She had this concept that there are greedy babies. And what she determined was A greedy baby is sucking on the mother's breast almost violently and wants more milk, more milk, more milk, more milk from the mother. They're already greedy. And they're going to grow up being people that need and want more and more of the world. They're going to push others around. They're going to be aggressive. She speculated that it was genetic, that there was like a genetic component to them being born this way. But she was speculating. So, you know, most people are born innocent. They're children. And if they're corrupted by their parents and by the world. But there could be some 2%, 1% of people who are literally born bad seeds, who will become serial killers because there's something genetically wrong with them. I can't really answer the question, but it's a fascinating question.
Thank you. For you, Robert, what's an unforgivable action?
Well, you know, I don't really know if I have one single action that's like that. But I do know, and here I'm going to get slightly political, I suppose, there are things going on in my country right now that are really deeply disturbing me because I'm American. I was born in America, raised here, educated here, and have a kind of instinctual love of my country. And there are things going on for me that are unforgivable, that make me embarrassed, that make me ashamed, that make me very, very angry. And so I like to treat, I've always been somebody who loves other cultures, right? So I love America, I love our literature, I love our music, but there isn't a culture in the world that I'm not interested in because they're fascinating. Everybody, you know, in Los Angeles, we grew up with a Latino culture that's very strong, even in the 60s, right? And I always loved it. My parents would take me to this part of LA called Olvera Street. I was just mesmerized by the different colors, the different food. I love other cultures. And so the sense of nationalism, of America first, of white people first, of this first, it disgusts me. It's unforgivable because the truth is, I'm going to get criticized a lot for this, but the truth is we all come from the same mother hundreds of thousands of years ago. We're all related, right? You know, it's very sad to me what's going on, obviously, in Israel as someone who's Jewish. I have deep empathy for what the Palestinians are suffering right now. I've known Palestinians, I've talked to them, and it's horrifying. It really is horrifying. And I'm conflicted about it because I am Jewish, but it's horrifying. They're the same people. They're the same Semitic origins. They come from the same land, at least some of them, you know, because there's Sephardic and there's Ashkenazi Jews. We're all related. We're all coming from the same seeds. And so it's unforgivable to be dividing people culturally and ethnically and nationally that way. And I don't know, I'm not really answering your question, but that's, to me, something that gets me very angry and very unforgivable. It's a form of stupidity. It's a form of not thinking and not understanding and being very limited in how you view the world. It's unforgivable.
No, I think you answered it very well. And you zoomed it out much more than just a personal disliking to one characteristic trait. What's the biggest mystery for you in life?
My biggest mistake?
Mystery. What's the biggest mystery for you in
Mystery?
life? In life, yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, what happens after death is the biggest mystery that we all face. You know, we can be so sophisticated with all our algorithms and all our knowledge and all our technology and all our science. We can explore the roots of consciousness. We can explore where our ancient ancestors came from, how the brain works, but we'll never, ever, ever know what happens after death. And it's bedeviled us forever. And so the story I'm reading about now from my last chapter of a man who fell into the most intense near-death experience ever recorded. And he was a neurologist. For 7 days, he was completely brain dead, right? Which means his brain is literally not functioning. It's dead. He still has some life functions. The hospital had given him up for being dead, but he was still being kept alive, but his brain wasn't functioning. And yet, he had all of these visions and going on in his head. And he poses the question, if my brain is dead, if it's not functioning, if it's not able to create images, what's happening? And so the mystery is the mind and the brain the same thing, right? Because we assume that the mind comes from the brain. But the brain is dead and the mind is still functioning, still going on. What does that mean? He speculated, and he's a scientist, that it means that there is something else to consciousness, that something happens after you're dead, and that he speculated that there is an afterlife. Now, I'm not going to go there, but the idea that the mind and the brain are not the same thing, and we have lots of evidence for that in other areas, is the biggest mystery and the most fascinating thing of all.
It's like the topic of the soul. You know, what is it? Is it something actually that leaves you? It's not your brain. And there's a verse in the Quran that says, because soul in Arabic is ruh. And in this verse it says, إِنَّمَا الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرُ رَبِّي, which means for the matters of the soul, that's matter for God. Like we will never comprehend it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, some things are beyond us. This question I would love to ask you. It's, if you could teach every child in the world one lesson, what would you teach?
Well, the lesson is, so what makes children so different, we started off talking about that, and so unique, is the sense that they feel ignorant. And because they feel ignorant, they're curious, right? I don't know what's going on in the world. I don't know why this is happening here. I better read about it. I better learn about it. I'm curious because I don't know why things are the way they are. Okay? And then you get older and you think you know everything. You know, I don't need to think about that. It's so obvious. I read it in a book. Science has told us this. You know, I read on Amazon. I read on a podcast. Robert Greene said this. I understand what the world's like, right? So you want to tell the child to keep that sense of ignorance, to keep that sense of you don't know what the world is about and that you're curious. Do not lose that. The great proponent of that in history was Socrates, who believed that there's no knowledge without ignorance, that you always begin from the proposition that you do not understand. And from that sense of I do not understand, you're open. You're open to different explanations, to different possibilities. Do not lose that. Do not lose it. That is a skill. That is what makes an Albert Einstein who he is, because he retained that childlike wonder. That is what makes a great artist, you know, who thinks about things deeply and originally. They retain that sense that they do not understand and they want to learn. So learning is the most exciting thing in the world, for me at least. I don't know for other people. When I feel like there's something I don't know and I learn about it, it's as good as sex almost, I can say, you know, it's just exciting. It's almost like a mental orgasm. I'm learning something, right? But you can't learn things if you think you already understand the answers, right? So I want to tell that child to retain that curiosity. And they have a phrase in Spanish that the painter Goya used, even when he was in his 70s, and it's aún aprendo, which means I'm still learning. So you always want to keep that. You always want to aún aprendo. You're always learning things.
There was I enjoy listening Because if I speak a lot, I'm just recycling what I already know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I listen, I might learn something new.
Yeah, but I'm doing all the speaking.
No, just in this case, you. But you also learn because you're a curious human, and that's how you said 6 years now on the current book. That's a learning.
Yeah.
If you could have once, are you tired, by the way, or are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm gonna reach my wall soon, but I'm okay.
We don't have too many.
Okay.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I just want my body back. I don't know if I'm asking too much, but before my stroke, my greatest pleasures in life were swimming. I would swim long distances. My mind would go to these other places. I would take these long hikes. I would get on my mountain bike. I'd go out in the world. I just want that back. I don't care. That would be the superpower I'd want. Just to have my 30, 40, 50-year-old body back with all the powers that I had. I don't ask for anything else. I don't ask to live forever. I don't ask for eternal youth. I don't ask for $1 billion. I just want my body back and being able to do the things that I used to love.
If you could have a dinner table with 3 guests, dead or alive, who would you invite with you? If it's you and 3.
I would invite Buddha, Jesus Christ, and Machiavelli.
Interesting. That's we need cameras on that table.
I mean, I've watched movies a lot at night, and there's a famous Italian director named Pier Pasolini, from the 50s and 60s. He did a version of the gospel according to St. Matthew, I believe. And he literally went and shot exactly what's written in the New Testament. And he does it as if you're actually there. And the actor who plays Christ is not a professional actor. It's the only thing he ever played in his life. And it makes you so interested. I'm Jewish, obviously. I'm not raised Christian. But it makes you so interested in the person. Not in all the myths, not in all the history, not in the actual religion that came, but the actual person. It's a fascinating figure, and I really would, and maybe I should have invited Muhammad on that as well. He'd be the 4th person.
What is a piece of advice you've never forgotten?
Well, it was negative advice. I've told the story before, but I was living in New York. I was probably about 25 years old. I was writing for a magazine. It was a magazine for Italian Americans, a glossy magazine called Attenzione. And I'd written an article about traveling in Italy, which I thought was a very good article. Then the editor of the magazine has me out for lunch. And he's kind of this older guy who ends up as kind of an alcoholic. And he's having his second martini during lunch. And he starts laying it to me, he goes, Robert, I was looking at your article and I want to give you some advice. And my advice is, you're not a writer. Give it up. You don't have the right mentality, right? You're not disciplined. You're writing all over the place. You're not controlled. You're not really communicating the way you think you're communicating. It's not the right kind of what we need for our magazine. If I were you in this kind of harsh world, I would go to business school because it's going to be very hard for you to earn a living as a writer. Whew, whoa, okay. Kind of reeling from that for several days. And then I'm thinking, because inwardly, I'm a pretty tough person. I'm going, well, maybe there's some truth to what he's saying. And the truth is, I'm never going to be good at journalism. I don't like journalism. The reason I don't like journalism is you write something that's for immediate. It's for like something that happened for the last 3 days. People read it and then it's gone. Nobody ever reads it again. You're always locked in the present moment. And I'm somebody who thinks in terms of thousands of years, not in 3 days or 4-day increments. It's a bad fit. I'm not made for journalism. You are a writer, Robert. Do not get discouraged. It just means that this guy's an alcoholic. He's got problems. He's projected them onto you. You still can write. It's just that you're not meant to write journalism. So it always stuck in my mind. Hearing people tell me I can't do something always kind of motivates me to do it. It's my great fantasy. There was this physical therapist who said, Robert, you're never going to be able to ride a bicycle again. And as I told this other therapist, my great fantasy is in a couple of years to get on a bicycle, to ride by her house and to give her the finger. Anyway.
Do you know her address?
I'll find it.
And, it kind of pisses me off when especially doctors act like gods and they go tell one of your family members, I think you have 2.5 months. I'm like, where do you get these forecasts? Because 90% of the time, they're so inaccurate.
Yeah.
Like even my grandma, I think one doctor told her, I'll make up a number, like 2 months, and she was 2 years. And like how annoying, not that even annoying is an understatement, to go to a patient and tell them something, how do you feel that patient leaves? If you just say, your condition is really tough, I would really urge you to have quality time. That's fine. You don't need to tell them you have 2 months.
Well,
I don't know. Or you can, I don't know. I just find it like it's a failed forecast many of the times.
Well, there's something called the placebo effect, but there's also another word, it's eluding me right now. But the phenomenon of the Pygmalion effect. So they've discovered, I read about this in Human Nature, that if a teacher in a classroom simply thinks that her students are all going to go to college, that they're all very intelligent, they will end up having higher scores. So how you treat people and how you talk to them, even non-verbally, communicates to them. So if you give them hope, their willpower is engaged, and they're going to your willpower can make you live longer than ever, right? So you never want to make people feel like they can't do something. You want to do the opposite, because maybe that motivates them to do it. Horrible. I hate doctors.
Okay, I'm going to
show.
This
looks foreboding.
We'll just do one. This is a card game I'm going to give you so you can enjoy it with your partner, with your friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, tell me which
go
one.
Home with this.
Tell me which one I should choose for you. This one? Okay, let's see. What fate holds for you. When were you... So when I'm going to ask you, you throw this on the floor and it's the way to answer. When were you the most disappointed in yourself? Throw. Oh my God, even yesterday we got a flip. Flip means both of us. Like, flip usually it's the other, so I have to answer. But since it's an episode with you, we'll both answer. When were you the most disappointed in yourself?
Well, I don't know if this is quite the right answer, but because there might have been something else.
So one off, let's say.
Yeah, I could think of two, but one of them was I was to write a book with 50 Cent, which I ended up doing. And I interviewed him for hours and hours and hours. I compiled all this information. And then I started writing the book, and I was showing it to people. And normally everybody loves what I write, and nobody was like, they weren't excited about it. And then the publisher canceled the project. They backed out. They wanted their money back. They said it was because it was taking too long, but perhaps I think it was because they weren't excited by what I was writing. I was very disappointed in myself. And somebody took me aside, I don't remember who it was, and they said, Robert, this book needs more of you and less of 50. In other words, you have to bring more of yourself. You can't just write a book just about 50. There has to be something in you that is going on. And I realized that I'm always trying to please other people. And I realized I was trying to please him too much. And it wasn't making it a good book. And it made me upset with myself because that is my weakness. I'm trying too hard to please someone, and I don't realize that the best thing sometimes is to just go your own way and do what you want to do and not think about them. And so the story has a happy ending. I was very disappointed in myself because I never failed at anything before since I had done the 48 Laws Project. This was a failure, a true failure. Because if the book's canceled and 50's done all this work with me, I'm going to be crushed. We found a new editor in a different publishing company, and he said, Robert, this is how you have to write. This might have been the person who told me what to do. And he said, that's the good news. You can redo the book. The bad news is you have only 8 months. I can't write a whole book like that in 8 months. But I did. I rose to the occasion. I've got all my energy together, and I wrote the book, and I think it came out a lot better than what I had thought I was doing. But for a while, I was very disappointed with my people-pleasing tendencies. I was being too servile to 50. Instead of thinking of it as an equal thing, me and 50 are equal, me as a writer, he as a rapper, I was deferring to him too much.
Last few questions.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of losing my mind. I'm afraid of like Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm so attached to thinking and always connecting to a phenomenon in the world, that madness or being thrust so deep inside of yourself that you can't get out would be my worst nightmare of all. So my stroke, as I said, amor fati, it was on blood clot here, which goes to the right side of my brain, right, which stops oxygen. So damage here in the right side of my brain, which causes the left side of my body to have no strength. If the blood clot had been on this side and it hit the left side of my brain, you lose language skill, you lose cognitive powers. You become almost brain dead, or you can. I'm so blessed that it happened on the right and not the left side. I mean, I lost my body, but I kept my mind. Losing my mind would be my thing I'm afraid of most.
Robert, who's someone that you lost and every time you remember them, your heart aches?
Well, there are two people. There's my father, who died in 2000. And he saw my first book, The 48 Laws of Power. He's a very calming person, and I miss him terribly. But then I had an old friend from junior high school named David Robach, who became a pretty well-known rock musician. He had a band called Maisie Star. He was pretty well-known. He was a very excellent musician. I didn't hang out with him a lot, but we had a deep, deep connection intellectually. From when I was very young, we both played the clarinet in junior high school band. And then he was like a year younger than me, but we had the same interests. And every time we saw each other, there was this intense bonding. And then I lost total touch with him. He moved to London. He lived in London. Then he was living in Norway with his Finnish wife. And out of the blue, after not hearing from him for 15 years, he wrote me saying he loved the 48 Laws of Power. It helped him immensely with dealing with the music world. We reconnected. I hung out with him in Norway. I hung out with him again a few more times. And then he passed away about 4 years ago. And I feel so sad because I just, I love I miss it deeply, and it's like a part of my childhood and my youth that's gone. There'll be nobody else who can replace that, nobody else that I had these experiences with, but I have no one to share it with. I have no one to talk to about. It's just all inside of me. And I loved him very much. He was a really great soul. And I miss him terribly. So those are the two people I would mention. Also my cats, but I'm not going to get into that.
If you could write your friend a letter today and he would read it, what would you write him?
I would tell him how I listened to his music. So to communicate, to feel his presence again, I listened to his music. He had several bands. He had a band in Los Angeles in the 80s. And then he had a really great band in the 90s. And then he had this massive star. I listened to his music. And that I think about him all the time. And that I'm going to mention him in my new book, in the acknowledgments. I'm going to thank him for the talks that we had when I was 19 years old. And I visited him when he was in college in Minnesota, when I was in Wisconsin. I was going to mention how much he enriched me. And so I would write a letter telling him how his spirit is inside the new book.
What would you like, hopefully after a long and healthy life, what would you like to be carved on your tombstone under your name?
Well, I know my legacy will be from my books, and so that's not going to be carved on my tombstone. But I do meditation every morning, and it's a form of Zen meditation. And in Zen meditation, they have what are called koans, which are little kind of sentences that you read. They're called like barriers to enlightenment. They're called the gateless barrier because there's no physical gate, but it's a barrier and it's all in your mind. In fact, it's all about getting past your mind, cutting off the mind and entering enlightenment. And the first koan that everybody studies and that I'm currently working on is called Me. And it goes, Joshu, somebody asks the great Zen monk, Joshu, or priest, does a dog have Buddha nature? Because the question in Buddhism is, what is Buddha nature and who has it? And of course, obviously, all living things have Buddha nature, but the person asking the question, it's like a trick question. And Joshu answers Me, which he was Chinese, but in Japanese, Me means no, doesn't have it, nothing. He's answering kind of no, but it's not no, it's something else. It's saying there is no answer. Yes and no are meaningless. Words are meaningless. What the reality is, everything is one. You can't even ask a question like that, right? Okay, you're supposed to go deeply, deeply, deeply into Me. You repeat it, it becomes a mantra, you become that word. That would be the word on my tombstone because it means nothing. It's like the paradox. It's like the opposite of trying to say something. It says nothing. It is meaningless.
I think
it is a paradox.
I feel it says nothing and everything.
Well, it does.
Like if you say one, right? You said it's all one.
Yeah.
That's why we can't separate them. So when you say Ma, it's nothing, but it's everything.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
But I would have it in the Japanese characters because they're beautiful.
Good. Yeah. Last question.
Oh, okay.
Robert in one word.
Kind of relentless.
Relentless.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because I just don't stop. I don't relax. I don't sit down and just mellow out and do nothing. It just add it, probably to an unhealthy degree. But, my sister has the same thing. We don't like stopping. We want to keep moving. So if we're in a car and somebody goes, oh, let's stop over here and look at something. No, just keep going, move. So I don't like stopping. I like keep moving. I'm kind of relentless that way. And if you put a mountain in front of me, I'll climb it and I'll keep climbing it.
They say sharks don't stop moving. You know that? That if they stop, they like die.
Wow,
Like
I never knew that.
I think we can chat GPT it, that even when they sleep, they have to keep moving.
Well, I guess I'm a shark then.
Yes, so.
Well, sharks can live to like 300 years. So there must be some wisdom to that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate this.
Thank you.